Hey guys, tonight we're diving headfirst into the wildest, most chaotic chapter of American history you were never meant to fall asleep to. The real, brutal, and frequently absurd life of a crack-addicted mother in the 1980s. That's right, tonight isn't about Wall Street yuppies, neon leg warmers, or a suspiciously upbeat montage with a saxophone solo. No, we're talking about minivans that smell like cigarette butts, sitcoms that only make sense if you're a little bit dizzy, and family dinners where someone is definitely hiding something under the table and it isn't broccoli. So, before you get too comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment with your favorite 1980s TV show or tell me what time it is for you. Now, dim those lights, flip on a fan for that white noise, and maybe put on a cassette tape of ocean waves, just loud enough to drown out the distant sound of someone yelling at Phil Donahue. Get cozy. And while you're at it, check your sofa cushions for spare change. You'll need it for laundry day or, more realistically, bail. But let's get real for a second. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to navigate motherhood in the 1980s with the crack epidemic raging around you? Did the microwave actually make everything taste like plastic? How many therapists would you need after a year of living next to a neighbor named Randy with a Camaro and a mysterious pager? Was there ever enough hairspray to cover the smell of regret? Could you survive with your only form of self-care being a bath in a tub that doubles as the dog's pool? Would you last a week when every convenience store is selling energy in the form of Tab and Slim Jims? And now, congratulations, you've just woken up in 1986. In a one-bedroom apartment somewhere between the railroad tracks and a Radio Shack. Your bathrobe smells faintly of smoke. Your fridge is full of expired yogurt. And someone just knocked on your door with questions you really don't want to answer. Good luck. The alarm clock blares, but you're already awake, because sleep is more of a rumor than a fact these days. The smell of burnt coffee wafts through the apartment, mingling with the lingering haze of last night's cigarettes. You pull yourself out of bed, muscles stiff from a mattress that's seen too much, and shuffle across linoleum that peels like a bad sunburn. Outside, someone's already yelling about the rent. Let's set the scene. It's the crack of dawn, but in the world of 1980s apartments, time is more of a suggestion than a reality. You open your eyes to the sound of sirens in the distance, and the whine of a baby that isn't yours, probably from the apartment above, where nobody sleeps, and the walls are made of tissue paper and lost hopes. There's a thin sliver of light sneaking in through faded curtains, illuminating a landscape of laundry piles and half-empty ashtrays. You reach for the alarm, miss, and knock over a bottle of nail polish from last week's attempt at self-care. Congratulations. The day has begun. Your first task: survive the carpet. It's not actually carpet, more a patchwork of shag and mystery stains, each with its own origin story. There's the one by the bathroom that smells like regret, and the one in the kitchen that's permanently sticky, despite your best efforts with lemon-scented ammonia. Every step is a crunchy reminder that you need new slippers, or maybe just new feet. In the kitchen, the coffee pot gurgles ominously. The smell is not so much inviting as it is confrontational. If the coffee doesn't wake you up, the first sip will. It's equal parts caffeine and resentment, brewed in a pot that hasn't been washed since Reagan was inaugurated. You pour it into a mug from the gas station. World's best mum, ironically chipped at the rim, and gulp it down, hoping it'll drown out the cough that's been living in your chest since Carter left office. The kid is already awake, perched on the couch in pajamas that used to be white. He's glued to the morning cartoons, eyes wide, hair wild, eating dry cereal straight from the box. You envy his enthusiasm for sugar and Technicolor animals. You promise yourself you'll make a real breakfast tomorrow, But today, you count a handful of Cheerios and a swig of orange soda as good parenting. You do what you can. Let's talk about the sounds. Everything in the 1980s apartment is loud. The radiator clanks like it's possessed. The neighbor's dog is barking. Again. Somewhere, a car backfires, followed by a burst of cursing and the distinct jangle of empty cans being kicked down the street. The soundtrack to your morning is less top 40, more urban wildlife documentary. You check the clock. The digital numbers flicker, cheap, unreliable, a metaphor for your entire sense of time. You're already late, of course. You grab whatever's cleanish from the laundry basket, which now doubles as your closet, and do a quick sniff test that would make your grandmother faint. You opt for jeans and a sweatshirt with a mysterious stain. Fashion is about survival, not statements. The bathroom is its own saga. You flick on the light, only to be greeted by a bulb that hums and threatens to go out for good. There's toothpaste crusted to the sink, hair in the drain, and a bottle of shampoo that's been refilled with water so many times it's now just a memory of cleanliness. You wash your face with cold water, avoiding the mirror as much as possible. Some things are better left unseen before noon. You lace up your shoes, if you can find both. One's under the couch, the other's near the door, next to a pile of overdue bills. The shoes don't match. But honestly, neither do your socks, and at this point, you count it as a win if you're wearing any at all. Before you leave, you pause by the window. The sun is trying, bravely, to cut through the grey of the city. You hear someone laughing down the hall, a rare sound, and you take a deep breath, savouring this small, ridiculous moment of calm before the day truly begins. You lock the door behind you and step into the hallway, heart racing, coffee in hand, ready to face another day. You survived the first cough of the morning. Everything else is just bonus content. You reach for instant coffee, powdered creamer, and whatever cereal your kid hasn't eaten straight from the box. Breakfast is a negotiation with your nerves. A choice between another cup of caffeine or something stronger. You eye the glass pipe on the windowsill, but settle for the sweet crunch of sugar and artificial flavor, pretending you don't hear the sirens outside. Let's talk about priorities. The sun is barely up, but your mind is already racing. Lunch money, rent, who's got the car today, and whether or not you'll have to explain the missing silverware to your sister again. You stare into the chipped Formica counter, contemplating the nutritional value of whatever's in the cupboard. Captain Crunch wins, by default and by desperation. You pour the last crumbs into a bowl, and the kid hovers nearby, waiting for permission to slurp up the rainbow-colored dust like it's gold. The instant coffee is an institution, a ritual, a sacred coping mechanism. You scoop it from a jar that's seen better days. Add the powdered creamer, because real milk is a luxury for people who don't have to pawn their VCR, and stir it with a spoon that's permanently bent at the handle. The result tastes like hope diluted with disappointment, but it's hot and caffeinated, and that's good enough. Across the table, your child crunches cereal with single-minded focus, blissfully unaware of the existential crisis happening just 3 feet away. You envy this. The ability to enjoy a cartoon mascot's promise of fun without thinking about fiber, sugar, or the price of another box. The kitchen clock ticks, ticking off seconds you wish you could spend on something as wholesome as a grocery list. But time moves fast in a world built on borrowed minutes and IOUs. The fridge opens with a sigh, revealing the usual suspects. Half a stick of margarine, some limp celery, an ancient jar of relish, and a Tupperware full of something that started life as spaghetti but now answers to science project. You do the responsible thing and close the fridge, pretending you didn't see the expired milk. and return to your mug. Let's not forget the soundtrack. The radio plays top 40, but the static is winning. Outside, tires squeal, someone shouts, a dog barks, and a siren wails in the distance. A symphony of 1980s city life, where breakfast comes with a side of anxiety and ambient dread. You sip your coffee and watch the light creep across a table covered in old mail and sticky notes, each one a reminder of something urgent you meant to do last week. You glance at the glass pipe again. The temptation is always there, whispering that today could be easier, smoother, quieter, if you just gave in for a minute. But the kid is here, the cartoons are on, and you've promised yourself this is a good day. So you crush the urge, tuck it somewhere behind your eyes, and focus on the rhythm of spoons and cartoons and your own pounding heart. Your child looks up, mouth ringed with blue sugar dust, and asks a question about math homework. You pretend you know the answer, but your brain is still back at the intersection of regret and hope. You promise you'll check it after breakfast, and vow to actually do it this time. Just as soon as you find a pencil that isn't broken, and a moment when your hands don't shake, there's a knock at the door. Maybe a neighbor, maybe a bill collector, maybe just the universe reminding you that peace is never more than 2 minutes long in this life. You freeze, mug, half raised, and listen. After a moment, you hear footsteps fade down the hall. Crisis averted, for now. You make a mental note to buy a new lock, or a bigger mug. And so, breakfast ends not with a bang, but with a whimper and a vague sense of accomplishment. You clear the table, sweeping cereal crumbs into your hand and dropping them in the trash, where they mingle with yesterday's dreams and tomorrow's to-do lists. The coffee is gone, the pipe stays on the sill, and the day lurches forward. You survived another morning in the 1980s. Sugar high, nerves jangling, dignity mostly intact. Everything else is just lunch. The shower runs cold by the time you get in. There's a frantic scramble for soap. Your kid used it for science class again. As water splatters against cracked tiles, you practice your affirmations. I am awake. I am alive. I am only slightly melting. It's almost enough to drown out the distant sound of your neighbor arguing with the TV. Let's be honest. Calling it a shower is generous. It's more like standing under a leaky faucet while participating in a time trial version of Survivor. You've got 10 minutes before the hot water, patience, or your will to live gives out. The bathroom itself is a museum of 1980s decor, faded seashell wallpaper, a vanity missing 3 knobs, and a medicine cabinet crammed with ancient cough drops, expired aspirin, and a tube of toothpaste that's been squeezed so many times it now resembles origami. Your feet cling to the cracked linoleum, perpetually damp, slightly sticky, and somehow always colder than the rest of the house. Each step is a roll of the dice. Will you slip on a rogue Barbie shoe? Or just stub your toe on the rusty scale that claims you weigh somewhere between don't ask and nice try? The only towel is damp from yesterday's emergency mop-up operation, and it smells faintly of mildew and defeat. As the water temperature nosedives from lukewarm hope to mountain, glacier, you scramble to soap up, but the only bar in sight is now suspiciously blue and embedded with glitter, thanks to the science experiment in the kitchen sink. You lather anyway, because at this point, personal dignity is a distant memory. If your skin tingles, it's probably not from the soap. It might just be your spirit, leaving your body for a minute to catch a break. The soundtrack to your shower isn't spa music. No, it's a symphony of pipes groaning in protest, your kid yelling for more cereal, and the neighbor's TV blaring the morning talk shows. On a lucky day, you'll catch a glimpse of yourself in the fogged-up mirror and think, is this what becoming an adult is supposed to feel like? You practice a quick power pose, which mostly looks like a shivering chicken, and run through your mental to-do list. Job, kid, bills. Explain the mysterious glitter rash to your boss. Maybe buy new soap. Let's talk hygiene. You rinse, you repeat. Sort of. You use shampoo that promises extra volume, but delivers smells vaguely like green apples. Conditioner is for people who didn't spend their last $5 on bus fare. You do a quick audit. Did you get all the mystery stains from your knees? Did you remember to wash behind your ears? Or are you saving that for next week's existential crisis? The shampoo drips into your eyes, and you blink away tears, half from stinging chemicals, half from contemplating what happened to your dreams of luxury bubble baths and unlimited hot water. Instead, your luxury is exactly 9.5 minutes of cleanliness, punctuated by your kid knocking on the door to announce a catastrophic Lego incident in the hallway. The cold water keeps you moving. You rinse off faster than a contestant on a game show, mentally awarding yourself bonus points for not screaming. You shut off the tap and reach for the towel, which now smells even worse than before. You wrap yourself in it anyway and tiptoe back into the hallway, leaving a trail of drips and existential dread in your wake. You wipe the steam from the mirror and give yourself a pep talk. You did it, you whisper, sounding slightly unconvincing. You are cleanish. You survived another day in the jungle gym that is your own home. It's not glamorous, but it's progress. You put on yesterday's jeans, because who has time for laundry, and prepare to face whatever disaster or sitcom-level mishap awaits in the kitchen. Because in the 1980s, a 10-minute shower isn't just self-care. It's an Olympic event, a minor miracle, and, on the best days, a reminder that you're still here, still trying, still standing. And for now, that's enough. Getting dressed in the 1980s means making decisions. Shoulder pads or no shoulder pads? Can you hide yesterday's stains under an oversized sweatshirt? You coat your lips in a shade called Wine with Everything and hope nobody notices that your shoes don't match. Style is survival, and a little glitter goes a long way when the world is falling apart. The closet, if you can call it that, is really just a sliding door in the corner, jammed full of clothes in every possible fabric and color combination. There's a pile of laundry on the floor that's basically its own ecosystem. And every morning begins with the ancient ritual of the sniff test. Is it clean? Does it smell sort of like flowers, or more like despair? If it passes, it's going on your body. If it fails, well, maybe nobody will notice if you wear enough body spray. You grab a pair of leggings, neon of course, because black leggings haven't been invented yet. They're stretched thin in all the wrong places and have a mysterious run down one side. Possibly from that time you tripped over your own kid's backpack on your way to answer the phone. A rotary phone, naturally, with a cord long enough to strangle a small animal. You squeeze into them, perform an awkward dance to get them past your hips, and move onto the top. It's decision time. T-shirt, sweatshirt, or the infamous off-the-shoulder look that says I tried. But not too hard. The oversized sweatshirt wins, preferably emblazoned with a faded cartoon or a band you haven't listened to since 1983. It's like armor. Except instead of metal, it's made of polyblend and broken dreams. The sleeves are too long, the neckline is too wide. But it covers the mystery stain from last night's spaghetti explosion. So you count it as a victory. Now, the real challenge, accessories. You dig through a tangled mass of costume jewelry that could double as a magpie's retirement fund. Plastic bangles, mismatched earrings, a single glove that's definitely not Michael Jackson's but might have started out with similar ambitions. You pile it on, reasoning that the more distractions you create, the less likely anyone is to notice your shoes. A pair of scuffed white sneakers on one foot and a faux leather flat on the other. Close enough. Time for makeup. The 1980s face isn't subtle. It's a commitment. Foundation that doesn't quite match your skin tone, blush applied like you're signaling for help, and electric blue eyeshadow that makes you look less Madonna and more startled raccoon. But you persist. A little mascara, a dab of glitter, because why not? And then the final touch. That lipstick, wine with everything. It promises glamour. It delivers semi-permanent stains on every mug, collar, and cheek you come across. You step back to survey the results. The mirror, ringed with toothpaste splatters and childhood fingerprints, offers no judgment. You strike a pose, chin up, shoulder pads out, channeling every confident heroine from every TV movie you watched through static and bad reception. If you squint, you almost look like you have your life together. Almost. Your child enters, dressed in pajamas, and a cape made from an old pillowcase. Surveys your outfit and pronounces it weird. You shrug. In the 1980s, weird is the baseline. You pull on your jacket, denim, naturally, with a collection of pins and patches that are half badge of honor, half apology for the rips in the elbows, and search for your keys, which are always in the last place you look. Or, if it's a Monday, in the fridge next to the ancient margarine. Getting dressed isn't about looking good. It's about feeling like you have a fighting chance against the day ahead. It's armor, disguise, and hope, all layered in polyester and self-deprecating humor. You grab your bag, a tote printed with some faded 1970s slogan, and prepare to face the world, sparkling just a little and ready for anything. In the end, the 1980s fashion parade isn't about impressing anyone. It's about survival. It's about using whatever's in reach. Sequins, shoulder pads, scented hairspray, to create a version of yourself that feels brave, bold, and just the tiniest bit fabulous, even if only for the length of a Cyndi Lauper song. You step out the door, mismatched, glittering, and totally unstoppable for at least the next 10 minutes. Bundling your child into a car that probably needs an exorcism more than an oil change, you embark on the daily gauntlet of school drop-off. Every other parent looks suspiciously well-rested. You, meanwhile, fumble for the right words at the teacher's glare and hand over lunch money with a shrug, praying it covers something more nutritious than a vending machine burrito. Let's start with the vehicle itself. The car, a battered station wagon, or maybe a rust-patched sedan, is a rolling time capsule of the 1980s. The passenger seat is sticky from an incident involving grape soda and a lost gummy bear. The back seat is a minefield of broken crayons, half-eaten crackers, and a mysterious smell that seems to have developed sentience. The only thing holding the glove compartment closed is hope and a wad of old receipts. When you turn the key, the engine coughs, rattles, and reluctantly starts, usually on the third try, sometimes after you threaten it with a hammer. The radio is stuck on a top 40 station that plays the same 5 Madonna songs in rotation, only interrupted by static and commercials for used car dealerships and questionable weight loss pills. You adjust the mirrors, only to find that one's fallen off and is now reflecting your child's attempt to turn a juice box into a projectile weapon. In the rear view, you catch your own reflection and try not to judge the stress lines or the smudge of wine with everything lipstick on your chin. Traffic around the school is a battle royale. The minivan mafia is already double parked, and the line of cars snakes around the block. The crossing guard, sporting a neon vest and a glare that could curdle milk, waves you forward with the air of a general about to lose a war. You inch your way up, dodging the parade of small children, bikes, and the occasional dog that seems to have no owner. Just existential wanderlust. Parallel parking is not for the faint of heart. It's a test of patience, spatial reasoning, and your ability to block out the judgmental stare of that one PTA mom whose hair is already perfect at 7:45 a.m. You make it work, mostly. There's a little grinding, a minor curb hop, but you're in. The car will probably never leave this spot without divine intervention. But you made it. Getting your child out of the car is its own circus. Their backpack weighs more than they do, their shoelaces are untied, and their jacket is half on, half forgotten in the trunk. You do a last-minute spit wipe on their cheek. Ignore their protest, and try to look like you know what you're doing. The other parents make small talk about soccer practice and gluten-free bake sales. You nod, smile, and desperately hope nobody asks about your weekend. Inside the school gates, it's pure chaos. Kids are running, parents are running. After them, teachers are already calculating how long until lunch. Your child bolts for the door, and you shout reminders, be good, eat your lunch, don't trade your apple for a ding-dong again, knowing full well that they will absolutely do the opposite. The teacher stands at the door, clipboard in hand, evaluating each parent like a judge at a dog show. You smile, try to remember if it's field trip day, and hand over a crumpled envelope with lunch money, hoping it covers both food and your own guilt. The teacher arches an eyebrow, probably remembering last week's incident with the magic markers, but says nothing. You both know it's too early for confrontations. You shuffle back to the car, dodging a rogue tricycle and a puddle that definitely wasn't there yesterday. In the rearview mirror, you watch your kid disappear into the building. A small streak of color and noise in a sea of little chaos gremlins. You feel equal parts relief, pride, and the creeping dread of tomorrow's repeat performance. You turn the key, mercifully, the car starts, and join the exodus of parents back into the world. The school drop-off is complete. You've dodged, weaved, smiled, and survived. That, in the 1980s, is as close to a gold medal as most of us get. There's a knock at the door, and your heart skips. It might be the mailman. It might be someone asking why your kid was late again. Every interaction with authority is a game of poker, and you've got a terrible hand. The forms pile up. The questions keep coming. You try to smile, but your jaw's been clenched since April. Let's be clear. In the 1980s, if you're a mother living anywhere near the edge, social services are less a safety net and more like a team of referees watching to see if you'll fumble. There's always paperwork, a blizzard of forms, half of which require information you haven't known since Carter left office. Name, address, phone number, landline only, and it's always off the hook. Last 5 employers, the name of your child's third-grade science teacher, your mother's maiden name, and a signature squeezed into a box the size of a postage stamp. Each time you pick up a pen, your hands sweat. Did you forget something last time? Did you check the wrong box? The lady at the desk has the patience of a saint but the optimism of someone who's already given up. She points to a clipboard, offers you a ballpoint pen with Property of County Health scrawled on it, and disappears behind a glass partition where laughter is forbidden and the coffee is older than your child. On the other side of the equation are the phone calls. Social workers call at odd hours, usually when you're in the middle of dinner, a meltdown, or both. They leave messages with cheerful tones and subtle threats. "We just want to check in," translates to, "We're looking for a reason to knock again." You rehearse your answers before picking up the phone, reminding yourself not to sound tired, not to sound angry, not to sound anything other than appropriately concerned, and definitely not overwhelmed. Home visits are an Olympic sport. You scrub the apartment until it smells like a chemical plant, hiding anything that looks remotely suspicious. Laundry piles, empty bottles, that ashtray shaped like a frog. You bribe your kid to behave. No, you don't know where they learned that word, and practice smiling in the mirror until your cheeks hurt. The knock finally comes, and you greet the caseworker with a tight smile and a firm handshake, praying they don't notice the pile of unpaid bills under the couch or the mysterious stain on the carpet. The questions are always the same, asked with a gentle, practiced concern that feels more like an audit than a conversation. How are you coping? I'm vertical. Is your child getting enough nutrition? Does breakfast cereal count? Have you had any recent visitors? Only existential dread. They glance around, scribbling, notes on a pad, occasionally making eye contact like they're searching for the truth behind your carefully rehearsed lines. Then come the recommendations, flyers for parenting classes, brochures for food banks, stern advice about bedtime routines and healthy snacks. You nod along, clutching the stack of paper like a lifeline, knowing that the only thing you can count on is more paperwork. Every visit is a test you're terrified of failing, with consequences that range from a gentle warning to something much worse. And then there's the aftermath. When the door closes, you collapse onto the nearest chair, heart pounding, running through everything you said, wondering if you slipped up. Did you admit too much? Not enough? Is doing my best ever going to be good enough for someone whose job is to find what's wrong? Later, after your kid's in bed, you fill out yet another form, this one for housing assistance, maybe, or the utility discount you're pretty sure you don't qualify for. You write your answers in block letters, erase and rewrite, wondering if honesty is worth the risk, or if you should just say what you think they want to hear. Because here's the secret. Nobody's rooting for you to fail, but nobody's exactly helping you win either. It's a system designed by people who've never had to choose between rent and ramen noodles. In the 1980s, survival means mastering the art of paperwork, charm, and plausible deniability, rolling the dice, and praying your number doesn't come up. You tuck the forms away, unclench your jaw, and wait for the next knock. Because in this game, you never know who's going to be at the door. You brave the fluorescent-lit aisles of the local supermarket, clutching a purse full of coins and expired coupons. Every decision, milk or cigarettes, apples or instant ramen, feels like a moral test. You watch prices climb while the checkout clerk looks at you like you're about to steal the gum. Maybe you are. Let's talk about the ritual of the 1980s grocery store. It's less retail therapy and more urban survival challenge. The doors whoosh open, and you're greeted by a blast of cold air that smells faintly of bleach, freezer burn, and fear. The carts rattle in protest. The wheels have never, in the history of shopping, rolled straight. One veers left, one veers right, and one seems determined to return to the wild. You choose the least haunted-looking cart, adjust your grip on your coin purse, and step into the maze. You start with the basics. Milk, bread, maybe eggs if the price hasn't doubled since last week. Each item is a negotiation. Whole milk or skim, white bread or wheat, which costs 50 cents more but feels like a life upgrade. Apples for the kid, but only if they're on sale. And if not, there's always the red delicious ones that taste like cardboard and broken promises. The produce aisle glows under unforgiving lights. Every apple waxed to a shine. Every banana somewhere between neon green and existential crisis. You scan the shelves for deals, flipping through coupons that expired last Tuesday, silently praying the cashier won't notice if you fold them just right. There's a game here. Match the coupons, dodge the store-brand knockoffs, and avoid the cheerful end caps that advertise things you can't afford, like ice cream or optimism. Every price tag is a mini panic attack. Did macaroni and cheese always cost this much? Has toilet paper always been a luxury item? The cereal aisle is a battlefield of its own. The kid wants something with a cartoon mascot and a prize inside. You want the cheapest box that'll last the week and maybe won't rot their teeth entirely. There's a standoff. Cap'n Crunch glares from the shelf, but store-brand corn flakes win by a landslide, mainly because you found a coupon and it's triple value week. You try to look victorious. The kid sulks. Nobody wins. You wander into the meat section, which smells like both yesterday and last year. There are hot dogs, ground beef with a suspiciously high percentage of other, and chicken legs marked manager's special, which is code for cook it today or regret it tomorrow. You eye the steak, then eye your wallet, then move on, telling yourself it's better for your cholesterol anyway. Frozen foods are next. Bags of mixed vegetables, boxes of pizza rolls, and the eternal question, should you spend your last $5 on something green? Or something that claims to be dinner but cooks in 2 minutes? Instant ramen it is. At least it's warm, filling, and comes with a flavor packet that technically counts as seasoning. At checkout, the anxiety hits full force. You unload your cart, item by item, watching the total rise with every beep of the scanner. The cashier is bored, unimpressed, and definitely judging the state of your coupons. You count out quarters, dimes, and pennies, the math getting harder as the line behind you grows. Someone sighs. Someone taps a foot. You feel your face burn. There's always the moment of truth. Did you bring enough? Is it going to be apples or cigarettes this week? You make choices in real time, telling the cashier to put back the fancy juice and the extra pack of gum. Maybe next time, you tell yourself, knowing full well there's never a next time, just the same time, all over again. Bags in hand, you leave with the essentials, plus maybe one small treat if you could swing it. The sliding doors open and you step back into the world, feeling like you just passed a test you didn't study for. Grocery shopping in the 1980s isn't about what you bring home. It's about what you manage to keep together. You survived the aisles, the coupons, and the stares. And if you swiped a piece of gum on the way out, well, chalk it up to self-care. Stepping outside, you become the star of a low-budget reality show. Neighbors peek through blinds, whispering stories you've never heard about yourself. You wave, pretending you don't care. But you know your name is on everyone's lips. Right after, did you see what she was wearing? Let's be honest, there are no secrets in a 1980s neighborhood. The air is thick with the scent of cigarettes, cut grass, and anticipation. Everyone waiting to see who's leaving whose house, which kid is getting in trouble today, and whether you remembered to bring the trash cans in before noon. Every front window is a surveillance station. Every screen door, a confessional booth. And every driveway has its own committee meeting, complete with folding chairs and mugs of black coffee. You step out, clutching your grocery bags, and catch Mrs. Garasi across the street pretending to deadhead her petunias while she catalogues your every move. She'll be reporting back to the 8 a.m. gossip hotline, her kitchen table, where information is exchanged with the efficiency of a Cold War spy ring. You can almost hear her. She's wearing the same sweatshirt as yesterday, and I think her child had Pop-Tarts for breakfast. Again, you try to project confidence, shoulders back, chin up, walk like you've got somewhere to be, even if it's just the mailbox. But every step feels like it's being graded. The neighborhood kids stare at you, whispering in a chorus of sticky fingers and summer knees, their own pockets full of rumors passed down from their parents. There's a sense that everything you do is part of a case file, kept in an invisible communal folder, somewhere between the Andersons' garage and the O'Reilly's porch. The cars in the driveway are a language of their own. Is there a new Oldsmobile in front of the Johnsons' house? Must be another boyfriend. Is someone's cousin's friend's uncle visiting for the 3rd weekend in a row? Suspicious. Meanwhile, your own battered sedan sits quietly, probably plotting its escape, or at least hoping not to be noticed during the next property value discussion. Conversations with neighbors are a minefield of polite questions and hidden landmines. Rough night? They ask, peering over their glasses, Translation: Did we hear yelling again? Or, is your sister staying with you? Meaning, how long before the landlord notices? You learn to answer in non-committal grunts, perfecting the art of the half smile, half sigh. Sometimes you lie just to keep things interesting. Oh, I'm taking night classes at the University of Not Your Business. Every so often, you get a mystery. Someone left a bag of hand-me-down clothes at your door, or a pie appears on your stoop, still warm. Is it kindness, pity? An elaborate ploy to see if you'll eat food from strangers? You check for raisins and hidden microphones just in case. Then there's the neighborhood watch proper, the unofficial coalition of the elderly and the extremely nosy. They take turns pacing the block with clipboards and suspiciously large flashlights, solving crimes that never happened and issuing warnings about teens, cats, or low-flying pigeons. Sometimes you get a warning taped to your door. Curb your dog. Park closer to the curb. Or the dreaded: We noticed you left your porch light on all night. Every note is signed, a concerned neighbor. But the handwriting matches the lady who once reported you for having a dandelion in your front yard. You try to keep your head down, but it's not easy. Someone is always watching. You catch your reflection in the neighbor's window, hair wild, grocery bag leaking, and realize you're now a supporting character in someone else's story. Maybe you're the cautionary tale, the tragic heroine, or just the one with the best collection of mismatched Tupperware. As you unlock your door and step back inside, you hear the gentle thud of blinds snapping shut behind you. Another episode wrapped. The credits roll in the form of whispered speculation and the crunch of your shoes on linoleum. You survived another day as the main attraction on Neighborhood Watch. Tomorrow, the plot thickens. You turn on the television for company. Phil Donahue is debating something important. Oprah is fixing lives in 60 minutes. The Price is Right is teaching you how to feign excitement about new dishwashers. It's background noise, but it's also the only thing in the room that isn't judging you. There's something oddly comforting about the glow of the TV in the middle of the day, especially when the world outside feels hostile and the walls of your apartment are closing in. The TV doesn't care that you're still in sweatpants, or that your breakfast was technically just 3 cigarettes and a handful of stale cereal. You don't have to explain yourself to Regis Philbin or the local news anchor. The set flickers away, a steady hum of reassurance that, for a moment, you can put real life on pause. Soap operas are the first escape. The camera pans over impossibly beautiful people arguing about affairs, fortunes, and twins separated at birth. In this world, even disaster has great hair. You get lost in the plot. Who's marrying whom? Who's in a coma? Who faked their own death for the insurance money? Knowing that no matter how messy your own life gets, at least nobody's replaced your baby with a lookalike. Yet. Sometimes you talk back to the screen, offering your own running commentary. Don't trust him, girl. He was with Denise last week. The cat, curled up on your lap, is your only witness and your only loyal companion. Then comes the parade of talk shows. The Phil Donahue audience is fired up about taxes, hair loss, or teenagers these days. You watch as an expert panel debates the moral crisis of tight jeans, and you wonder if anyone on stage actually pays their own bills. It's equal parts circus and group therapy, the audience nodding along as if they too have all the answers. Somewhere, Oprah is orchestrating a miracle. She hugs a guest, gives away a car, or introduces a new self-help book. And for a second, you wonder if you should buy a journal and start over, right after your next nap. Commercial breaks are their own kind of reality check. Ads for diet shakes, miracle cleaning sprays, psychic hotlines, and the world's sharpest set of steak knives parade across the screen. A local lawyer promises to get you cash for your accident. and a guy with suspicious hair tries to sell you a timeshare in Florida. You watch it all, making mental notes you'll never use, tempted by the idea that happiness could be delivered in 4 to 6 weeks. Plus shipping and handling. You switch channels, chasing the sweet spot between boredom and anxiety. Game shows are your guilty pleasure. The one place where everyone seems genuinely thrilled just to guess the price of a vacuum cleaner. "Come on down!" the host yells. And you cheer along as a woman in a bedazzled sweatshirt wins a new car and nearly faints with joy. There's something cathartic about watching strangers lose their minds over a washer-dryer combo. Especially when your own dryer is a clothesline and the wind. It's easy to get sucked into the rhythm of daytime TV, the rising and falling action of other people's drama. There are no consequences for skipping an episode, no pressure to keep up. The plot resets each day, just like you do. When your own problems feel too heavy, you can always flip over to a courtroom show and let Judge Judy do the yelling for you. Outside, life marches on. Bills pile up, kids scream, neighbors knock, and the phone rings. But for a couple of hours, you live vicariously through commercial breaks and audience applause, insulated by the static and the familiar, numbing cadence of TV land. There's no judgment here, only distractions, glossy, overacted, and deliciously safe. When the screen finally fades to static, you snap out of your trance and return to the real world. The dishes still need washing, the errands haven't run themselves, and there's a new mountain of paperwork on the table. But for just a while, the TV gave you exactly what you needed. Company, comfort, and the reminder that no matter how dramatic life gets, there's always someone, somewhere, with a storyline a little wilder than your own. Making ends meet is a full-time job. Maybe you clean houses, maybe you watch someone else's kid for a few bucks, maybe you sell knickknacks at the flea market. The hustle never stops. You become an expert in making a dollar stretch and in explaining away every mysterious $10 bill. It's not just about employment, it's about survival. And survival in the 1980s means being able to juggle 3 side gigs and still have energy left to bargain with the landlord. You wake up with a to-do list that looks more like a ransom note. Pick up groceries, find quarters for laundry, call Mrs. Wilson about babysitting, and see if anyone at the bar needs help moving furniture. You don't have a schedule, you have a scavenger hunt, and every maybe is a potential meal. Cleaning houses isn't glamorous, but it's steady, sort of. You show up at someone else's dream home, armed with a caddy of supplies and a playlist of daydreams. You scrub sinks, sweep under couches, and try not to judge the toothpaste blobs or the weird things you find behind the fridge. Sometimes the lady of the house offers you a cup of instant coffee and a story about her cousin's neighbor's divorce. You listen, nodding, tucking away gossip like coupons, because who knows, maybe she'll recommend you to a friend. Networking, 1980s style. Babysitting is another gig in your arsenal. You wrangle 3 kids under the age of 8, armed with nothing but a VHS tape of The Land Before Time and a box of saltines. You referee arguments, patch up scraped knees, and practice the fine art of pretending not to notice when the youngest forgets to flush. When the parents come home late, you smile through gritted teeth as they fish for change in their pockets and say, "We'll get you next time." You keep a running tally in your head, knowing you'll never see the full amount. Then there's the flea market hustle, equal parts theater and negotiation. You lay out your table with costume jewelry, chipped mugs, old records, and whatever you could convince your own child to part with for $1. The customers haggle, you haggle back, and sometimes you trade a lava lamp for a bag of groceries. The air is thick with the scent of hot dogs, knockoff perfume, and desperation. Still, you walk away with a handful of cash and a story about the guy who tried to buy all your spoons for a collection. No job is too small, no dollar too insignificant. You mow lawns, you walk dogs, you run errands for neighbors who pay in both cash and casseroles. Sometimes you wash cars with a hose that barely works. Sometimes you iron shirts for the family upstairs. The money trickles in, never enough. Always just enough to keep hope on life support. You become an expert in bartering. A ride to the laundromat for a bag of groceries. Watching a neighbor's kid in exchange for a haircut in the kitchen. You know which pawn shop gives the best deal on jewelry, which gas station lets you prepay in coins, and which corner store owner won't ask questions if you're 50 cents short. At the end of the week, you tally up your earnings, a stack of crumpled bills, some coins, and maybe a gift card to a diner that hasn't updated its menu since Nixon. You pay what you can, rent, electricity, groceries, and shuffle the rest into envelopes labeled emergencies, school trip, and maybe fun. Someday. There's no room for luxury, but you splurge on a bag of chips or a soda because you earned it. You become a master of stories, too. When someone asks about that extra $10, you have a dozen answers. Babysitting, you say. Sold some books, you say. Don't worry about it, you say, with a wink and a shrug. Because the first rule of hustling in the 1980s, never let them see how tired you are. So you hustle and you get by, barely, brilliantly, and against all odds. The art of making ends meet is the art of never letting them see you sweat. Or if they do, just tell them you're working on a new side gig. Selling vintage sweat. Your body aches, but there's no time for illness. The free clinic is a maze of paperwork, waiting rooms, and nurses who ask too many questions. You rehearse your answers in advance. Every cough is a cause for concern. And for cover stories, it's the 1980s. And unless you have a good job, and who does, you're not seeing a family doctor in a mahogany-paneled office. No, you're headed to the community clinic, where the walls are painted a color best described as medicated beige, and the magazines in the waiting room are already old enough to be retro. You drag yourself, and sometimes your kid, too, out of bed at the crack of dawn, because if you're not one of the first 10 people through the door, you'll be waiting all day behind a crowd of equally exhausted and increasingly desperate faces. You sign in at the front desk, pen chained down to the clipboard like a condemned prisoner. The receptionist, equal parts saint and warden, slides you a stack of forms that seem designed to uncover every personal secret you've ever had. Have you had this pain before? How many times a week do you drink? When was your last period? You laugh, because time is a flat circle, and periods are just one more thing you don't have time for. You fill it out as honestly as you dare, leaving the trickier questions blank or answering with a strategic sometimes. Then comes the waiting. You sit on a plastic chair that's been through too many lives, clutching your purse like it holds the answer to all your problems. Around you, the soundscape is a blend of babies crying, teens arguing with their parents, and the relentless, buzzing flicker of fluorescent lights overhead. There's always a kid with a runny nose, a man coughing like he's auditioning for a Dickens novel, and someone who smells strongly of menthol and old cigarettes. You count the stains in the ceiling tiles and check your watch every few minutes, though time here moves in dog years. The nurse calls your name, and for a moment you feel like you've won a contest. She leads you down a hallway lined with posters about quitting smoking, eating more vegetables, and not sharing needles. You nod along, knowing full well that you're just here for antibiotics or maybe a prescription you can actually afford. The nurse takes your blood pressure, high, but you're not surprised. Your temperature, normal, surprisingly, and asks if you've been feeling stressed. You give her your best "I'm totally fine" smile, even as your eye twitches and your knee bounces. The doctor finally enters, a whirlwind of lab coat, stethoscope, and barely contained impatience. He's nice enough, but he's moving fast. There's a whole line of people waiting for their 3 minutes of medical attention. You list your symptoms, careful to underplay anything that sounds expensive. A cough? Just allergies. Stomach pain? Probably stress. Chronic exhaustion? Just being a mom. He asks about your job, your home, your habits, and you do your best to make everything sound normal, healthy, and under control, even if it's a lie told out of necessity. You leave the exam room clutching a prescription and a pamphlet on stress management, as if a few breathing exercises and herbal tea are going to fix a decade of survival mode living. At the front desk, you stare at the bill, which says, "Pay what you can." You pay what you can, which is usually less than what they want, but more than what you can spare. You promise to come back for a follow-up you know you'll reschedule at least 3 times. On your way out, you pass the pharmacy window, where a tired-looking tech slides you a bag of pills and a lecture on taking as directed. You nod, tuck the instructions into your purse, and head out into the sunlight, blinking and grateful to be back in a world where the questions are easier, even if the answers are just as hard. Navigating the health system in the 1980s isn't about getting well, it's about getting by. It's learning how to stretch a bottle of pills, how to treat a fever with cold washcloths and hope, and how to smile through pain because being sick isn't an option. You walk home slow, body aching but spirit unbroken, ready to face the next challenge, whatever it is, armed with nothing but determination and maybe, finally, a little relief. You scrub the kitchen counters until your hands are raw, spraying enough Pine Sol to knock out a horse. The illusion of order is everything. Toys are shoved into closets, dishes hidden in the oven, and you pretend your life is a sitcom with a happy ending just around the next ad break. The truth is, in the 1980s, domestic perfection isn't just a personal goal, it's a survival tactic. The whole world is watching. Or at least your neighbors are. And the messier your life feels, the more you double down on getting those counters to shine. You wipe away last night's spills, a sticky map of grape juice and ketchup, each stain a remnant of minor chaos. You keep cleaning long after the surface looks clean, scrubbing not just the grime, but the worry, the exhaustion, the feeling that at any moment someone could drop by and see the truth. The living room is a landmine field of clutter and last-minute miracles. A knock on the door sends you into Olympic mode. Shoes vanish under the couch. Crumbs are swept into corners. The coffee table transforms from a dumping ground to a carefully curated landscape. A bowl of plastic fruit, 3 magazines you never read, and 1 flower in a glass that's supposed to be a vase. The curtains are always open just enough to let in light, but not enough for anyone to see the pile of laundry lurking behind the armchair. You run the vacuum like it's a race against time, pushing it over the same spot again and again, as if sheer effort can erase the evidence of another exhausting week. The sound is oddly soothing, a white noise machine masking the inner monologue of anxiety and guilt. When the bag is full, you dump it out, taking a weird satisfaction in seeing tangible proof that you accomplished something, even if it's just removing 3 pounds of crushed Cheerios from the carpet. Every surface in the house tells a story. The bathroom sink, gleaming from its twice-daily wipe-down, is ringed with toothpaste spatters and the ghost of eyeliner that survived the weekend. The towels are stacked with military precision, though at least half are really just cleanish, hastily dried over the heater. Even the toilet paper is folded at the edge, like you're expecting a visit from the Queen, or maybe just a judgmental mother-in-law. The kitchen is the battleground where order and entropy fight for supremacy. You line up the mugs, hide the dirty ones behind the cereal boxes, and stack pots in the oven, hoping nobody will be hungry for lasagna if they drop by unannounced. If the dishes are clean and the stove isn't sticky, you count the day as a win. And the bedrooms? Don't open those doors. You've stashed everything you couldn't find a place for in the closet, behind the dresser, under the bed. The clean you present to the world is as carefully constructed as the sitcom reruns that play in the background. Just like those shows, your house has a laugh track. Yours, brittle and tired, echoing off the lemon-scented floors. You put on a fresh shirt, spray yourself with something that claims to be spring rain, and check your reflection in a window. For a second, you look like you belong in one of those magazine ads for breakfast cereal or floor wax. You smile, straighten a cushion, and remind yourself, this is good enough. Maybe it's not real, but it's believable. And that's half the battle. Because here's the secret nobody tells you. Nobody's house is really spotless, and nobody's life is as tidy as it looks from the outside. We're all just hiding dirty dishes, hoping for compliments on the living room, and wishing the applause would come before the next commercial break. So you keep up appearances, not for the world, but for yourself. A fragile shield against chaos, a daily proof that you still care, and a gentle lie you tell because sometimes, just sometimes, it helps you believe that a happy ending could be waiting just around the next episode. You sit in a tiny chair, knees jammed under a miniature table, as the teacher reads off your child's areas for growth. You nod, agree, apologize, and swear you'll work on it. The word disruptive is used like seasoning. You wonder if there's a support group for parents who never get gold stars. Let's set the scene. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, educational posters peeling at the corners, and the faint aroma of Elmer's glue and tempera paint lingering in the air. You're surrounded by artwork, handprints, turkeys, and a poster about sharing, none of which feels particularly relevant as you try to fold yourself into a seat that was never designed for adult anatomy or adult anxiety. The teacher sits across from you, a clipboard in hand, her expression a blend of exhaustion and gentle concern. You brace for impact as she begins to recount the highlights. And, let's face it, mostly lowlights of your child's academic career. He's very bright, but the but is always lurking, like a plot twist you saw coming a mile away. She's got lots of energy. Translation: she can't sit still. He's creative. Translation: he's drawn a mustache on every historical figure in his workbook. You nod and smile, trying to channel your most responsible together self, the one who packs nutritious lunches and never forgets permission slips. In reality, you're just hoping your shirt is clean and you remembered to brush your hair. The teacher highlights areas for growth, organization, focus, not bringing live insects for show and tell. You promise you'll address these at home, even though you know your authority in the face of a determined 8-year-old is roughly equivalent to a traffic cone in a hurricane. The word disruptive pops up repeatedly. It's become a kind of punctuation in the teacher's script, an all-purpose explanation for why your child is apparently leading a rebellion in the classroom. You deflect with a joke. He gets it from his father. But the teacher doesn't laugh. She is, after all, the gatekeeper of report cards, field trips, and the ever-dreaded needs improvement box. There's a moment when the conversation pivots to the home front. "Is everything okay at home?" she asks, her tone gentle, but the question lands with the weight of a lead balloon. You dodge with a practiced smile. "We're doing our best," you say, which is the truth, even if it doesn't sound impressive. You wonder if she knows about the late nights, the early mornings, the desperate negotiations to get shoes on the right feet and lunches out the door. The meeting winds down with a list of suggestions. Reading for 20 minutes a night, setting a regular bedtime, signing the homework folder every day. You nod, knowing full well your evenings are already a marathon of microwave dinners, bath time negotiations, and last-minute science fair emergencies. You add the teacher's suggestions to the growing list of parental shoulds. Right next to find time for self-care, and don't let the kid eat cereal for dinner more than twice a week. When it's finally over, you stand, knees cracking, and thank the teacher for her time. You're handed a packet of resources, tips for organization, a calendar of school events, and a flyer for an upcoming bake sale you absolutely do not have the energy to participate in. You squeeze your way out of the classroom, dodging other parents with the same look of grim determination. On the way home, you replay the conversation, wondering if you said the right things, if your kid is really that disruptive, if there's a secret to this whole parenting thing that everyone else knows. You promise yourself you'll try harder, do better, maybe even volunteer for that bake sale. You won't. Because parent-teacher conferences aren't just about your kid. They're about you, too. Dodging guilt, deflecting shame, and defending your parenting like it's a final exam nobody prepared you for. You sigh. Remind yourself that nobody gets gold stars every day, and head home to your tiny rebel, ready to do it all again tomorrow. Tantrums aren't just for kids. Sometimes you lock yourself in the bathroom and scream into a towel. Other times, you hand your child a popsicle and pray the sugar rush buys you 10 minutes of peace. Emotional triage is the only kind of self-care you can afford. In the 1980s, emotions are everywhere, splattered across shag carpet, echoing through hallway walls, and pooling in the bottom of coffee mugs that never seem to be empty or clean. The morning starts with a whimper, and, if you're lucky, doesn't end in an outright wail. You've learned that managing a household means managing a revolving door of crises. The lost shoe, the wrong color cup, the sibling standoff over a single piece of toast. Meltdowns come in all shapes and sizes, and not just from the people under 4 feet tall. Your kid's meltdown is loud and theatrical, a Broadway production of I Hate Wearing Pants performed in the grocery aisle for a standing room only audience. Their weapon of choice, decibels. Your own meltdown, on the other hand, is subtler. It's a slow simmer that bubbles into a spontaneous crying session while you wipe down the kitchen counters, or a silent prayer screamed into the universe as you fish crayon bits out of the dryer. Every parent develops a unique set of coping strategies. You've tried the classics, counting to 10, deep breathing, reciting a mantra you read in a magazine, serenity now, serenity now. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it just buys you a few seconds to plan your escape. You learn to spot the warning signs, the twitch in your child's left eyebrow, the sudden drop in volume before the storm, the way your own hands start to shake when you hear the unmistakable crunch of a broken toy underfoot. When your kid's meltdown hits its peak, you cycle through the stages. Denial. Maybe they'll just tire themselves out. Bargaining. If you calm down, you can have 2 popsicles. Anger. That's it. No TV for a month. And finally, acceptance. Handing over the TV remote and praying they don't find the channel with the terrifying clown. There's no right answer, only the one that gets you both to bedtime with minimal collateral damage. And then there are the public meltdowns, the ones that earn you glares from strangers and sympathy from only the kindest of cashiers. You become an Olympic-level negotiator, promising rewards for good behavior, or at least for less bad behavior. Sometimes you find yourself apologizing to the produce manager while your child launches a dramatic monologue about the injustice of not being allowed to eat all the grapes. You grab your groceries, herd your offspring toward the car, and practice your best "what are you going to do?" smile. Your own emotional bandwidth is not infinite. There are days when it feels like everything is fraying. The nerves, the budget, the patience. You find yourself snapping over nothing, then feeling guilty for hours. Sometimes, after the final tantrum of the day, yours, theirs, or both, you sit on the edge of the bathtub and wonder if it's possible to run away to the guest room at the Holiday Inn. But then you remember there's no room service, and nobody there knows how you like your coffee. At the end of it all, meltdowns are as much a part of the 1980s parenting landscape as jelly shoes and VHS tapes. You mop up the tears, theirs and yours, offer hugs, wipe noses, and try to patch together a peace treaty that will last until the next sugar crash. Sometimes, in the quiet after the storm, you catch your kid snuggled on the couch, sticky popsicle smile and all, and realize you survived another day. Managing meltdowns isn't about getting it right, it's about getting through. So you scream into the towel, take the deepest breath you can, and remind yourself, this too shall pass. Probably right after you find the other shoe. It's not just a drug, it's a business model. You know who to call, when to hide, and how to make excuses. Money flows out as fast as it comes in, and every transaction is another step down a slippery slope paved with empty promises and broken glass. In the shadowy corners of the 1980s, the crack economy hums quietly but relentlessly, woven into the fabric of everyday life. Forget Wall Street, the real hustle is happening in cramped apartments, alleyways, and behind the neon-lit counters of late-night convenience stores. There's a secret language, a set of unwritten rules. Dealers come and go, sometimes on bikes, sometimes in battered Chevys with the engine running. You recognize their faces not because you want to, but because you have to. The exchange is quick, never friendly, always transactional. A nod in the hallway, a handoff in the stairwell, money tucked into a sweaty palm, a tiny bag passed in return. The whole thing takes less than a minute, but the consequences ripple for days. You don't look anyone in the eye. You don't linger, and you definitely don't talk about it with neighbors. Everyone knows, but no one admits it. There's plausible deniability in silence, and survival in not asking too many questions. Bills pile up, rent, groceries, and utility shut-off. Notices compete with the quiet urgency of addiction. You find yourself playing financial Tetris. This month, the gas bill wins. Next month, maybe you buy new shoes for the kid. The rest of the money disappears into the crack economy. $10 here, $20 there, sometimes everything you had saved for something good. It's a cycle that never stops spinning, always promising relief, never delivering anything but another bill and another reason to lie. You get creative with excuses. It was for groceries. The electric company double-billed me. It just disappeared. Each story is tailored to the listener, a landlord, a parent, a friend, or yourself. You start to believe them too, because it's easier than facing the truth. Addiction isn't just about wanting the high. It's about needing the escape from reality, even if it only lasts a few minutes. Dealers know their clientele. They extend credit sometimes, a dangerous courtesy that always comes due with interest. Sometimes in cash, sometimes in favors, always with a quiet threat hanging in the air. If you miss a payment, the fear is palpable. You jump every time someone knocks. You peek through the blinds at every unfamiliar car on the street. There's a hierarchy, and you're never at the top. The desperation leaks into every aspect of life. You start pawning things, first the jewelry you never wear, then the television, the microwave, the things that made your apartment feel like home. The kid asks where the TV went, and you say it's getting fixed. You promise you'll get it back, and maybe you believe it. Maybe you don't. Every once in a while, you swear it's the last time. You look at the empty wallet, the empty room, the faces of the people who need you to show up. The guilt is heavy, like a winter coat you can't take off. But the world outside is colder. You want to get clean, to start over, to climb out of the hole, but every day is another roll of the dice. Another test of how much you can juggle before it all comes crashing down. The crack economy doesn't care about dreams or dignity. It only cares about demand. And in a city where hope is in short supply and money never stretches far enough, demand is never a problem. You see people fall. You see people disappear. And you promise yourself you won't be next. But the cycle is patient, and you know tomorrow you'll be right back where you started. Dodging, dealing, making promises you might not keep, clinging to the possibility that something will finally change. Until then, you play the game, because in the 1980s, losing isn't an option. It's a fact of life. There's a knock at the door again, and this time it's the cops. They're polite, mostly, but their questions cut deeper than any knife. You answer as vaguely as possible, heart thumping so loud you can barely hear their warnings about the neighborhood and your responsibility. It's one of those moments you hope never happens. But in the world of the 1980s crack epidemic, it's almost inevitable. The blue and red lights outside flicker against your curtains, casting weird shadows on the ceiling and alerting every neighbor in a 2-block radius that something is up. Again, you open the door just a crack, already bracing yourself for the onslaught of judgment from the porch and the whispers that will follow after the cruiser pulls away. The officers stand there, not unfriendly, but not exactly on your side. They ask if you've seen anything unusual lately, if you've noticed strangers coming and going, if you're aware of what your neighbors are up to. It's a script you both know by heart. They don't mention the real reason they're here. Not directly. Maybe someone made a call about a disturbance. Maybe it's just a welfare check. Maybe they know more than they're saying. Either way, every answer you give feels like a trap. You pick your words carefully. Just the usual, you say. Nothing out of the ordinary. You force a smile that feels like it might break your face, hoping it looks more convincing than you feel. They look over your shoulder, into the apartment, the mess on the coffee table, the child's artwork on the fridge, the stack of unopened mail. You feel exposed, as if every dirty dish and missed bill is another mark against your credibility. The questions keep coming, gentle but relentless. How's your child doing in school? Have you noticed anyone hanging around who doesn't live here? Anything you want to tell us? You shake your head and try not to fidget, but your fingers dig into your palms until they ache. You wonder how much they know, how much they guess, and whether your face is giving anything away. It's not just about you, of course. The police visit is theater, a performance for the whole neighborhood. You can feel eyes on you from behind curtains. Sense the hush as people press their ears to the walls, desperate for a scrap of gossip to turn into legend. Tomorrow, everyone will have a theory. Some benign, some wild. All of them delivered with the confidence of someone who's never had a cruiser outside their own door. Maybe the cops mention the crack problem directly. Maybe they don't. Maybe they hint around it, talk about concerns and increased activity. Maybe they say the word safety so many times it starts to lose all meaning. They're not accusing, but they're not reassuring either. The unspoken message is clear. We're watching, and you should be too. For your child, it's confusing and terrifying. They hover behind you, eyes wide, clutching a stuffed animal or a snack. Unsure if this is trouble or just another adult problem that doesn't come with a cartoon soundtrack. You try to shield them, answering questions with practiced calm, pretending this is normal, just part of life. After the officers leave, you kneel down, hug your child, and try to explain without explaining, putting on your bravest face for both of you. When the door finally closes, your legs feel like jelly. You slide down to sit on the floor, back pressed to the wood, and let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. Relief mingles with shame and a creeping anxiety that lingers long after the lights disappear. You check the locks twice, listen for any signs that someone's watching, and replay every word you said, worried you missed something important. Later, you sit at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold. You stare out the window, eyes flicking from car to car, wondering if there will be another knock tomorrow, or if you'll ever be able to really relax again. In the 1980s, a police visit isn't just a blip in your day. It's a ripple that spreads, touching everything, changing the way you walk down your own street. You survive it, but it never really leaves you. Not in this neighborhood, not in this life. Dinner is a ritual in controlled chaos. Powdered cheese, overcooked pasta, and hot dogs sliced into coins, cuisine of necessity. You serve it with a flourish, pretending you're Julia Child, and ignore the way your stomach tightens at the sound of the microwave beeping. Let's set the table, figuratively, because in reality you're eating at the coffee table or standing at the counter, balancing plates on top of stacks of bills and stray homework. The 1980s kitchen is an arena for improvisation. Your arsenal: a battered saucepan, one wooden spoon that's seen better decades, and a microwave that hums with a menacing, slightly radioactive energy. The menu: whatever is cheap, fast, and guaranteed to fill a belly, even if it doesn't fill the soul. Tonight, the main event is mac and cheese, a staple of the era and a culinary blank canvas for anyone desperate, exhausted, or low on groceries. The box promises creamy cheddar flavor and ready in minutes. What it delivers is more questionably orange powder and sticky noodles that bond teeth together. You follow the directions, sort of: boil water, add pasta, ignore the timer, fish out the noodles when they start sticking together in clumps. Step 1 to ruining mac and cheese: overcook the pasta until it's mush. This isn't a restaurant. Al dente is just a fancy way of saying I was distracted by an episode of Jeopardy. You drain the noodles in a colander that's missing a handle and pour them back into the pot, ignoring the bits that stuck to the bottom. Burnt starch adds flavor, right? Step 2, go heavy on the milk. Or, more likely, whatever's left in the bottom of the carton, watered down and a little sour. If there's no milk, you improvise. Powdered creamer, a splash of evaporated milk, or, on truly desperate days, a bit of mayonnaise. You stir it all in, watching the cheese powder turn the whole thing a shade of orange found nowhere in nature. Then remind yourself that it's cheese adjacent, which is as close as it gets on a Tuesday night. Step 3. Add protein. Hot dogs, of course, sliced into coins for that gourmet touch. Sometimes bologna, sometimes a can of tuna if you're feeling fancy. You toss it in, give it a stir, and pretend you're auditioning for a cooking show. Tonight, we're pairing classic pasta with artisanal processed meat, aged for exactly 3 weeks in the crisper drawer. Step 4. Get creative with sides. Open a can of peas, microwave them until just shy of nuclear, and dump them on the plate. Or, if you're low on veggies, settle for a handful of potato chips. The food pyramid is more of a suggestion anyway. Dessert? If there's time, a slice of white bread with margarine and a dusting of cinnamon sugar. You call it poor man's pie and serve it with a wink. Step 5. Presentation is everything. Sprinkle some stale breadcrumbs over the top. Throw on a slice of processed cheese if you're feeling decadent. You arrange it on chipped plates and announce, "Dinner is served," in your best Julia Child impression. The kids are unimpressed, but you hold your head high. In a different life, you'd be garnishing plates with parsley. In this one, you're just hoping nobody notices the macaroni is a little crunchy. The meal is eaten quickly, between homework and bath time negotiations, with plenty of second helpings, because carbs are cheap and hunger is patient. You listen to the sounds of forks scraping plates, laughter, and the background noise of sitcom reruns. You keep the conversation light, steering clear of topics like, why can't we have pizza? Or when will we eat something not orange? After dinner, you stack the dishes in the sink, rinse out the pot, and try not to think about what's for breakfast. Survival meals aren't about taste or nutrition or even comfort. They're about getting everyone fed. And through another day, you did it. You kept everyone going, kept the chaos at bay. And for tonight, at least, nobody went to bed hungry. And that, in the world of the 1980s, is more than enough. Laundry is a test of character and coin-counting skills. You haul bags down 3 flights of stairs, praying the dryer isn't full of someone else's underwear. Every missing sock is a reminder that nothing stays together for long, not even cotton blends. First, you gather your laundry supplies. This means scouring every couch, cushion, coat pocket, and junk drawer for quarters, nickels, and dimes. The true currency of survival. Laundry isn't a chore. It's an Olympic event requiring strategy, stamina, and the kind of gritty determination only found in single mothers, third-string athletes, and people who lived through disco. You pray you've got enough change for both the washer and the dryer, but you're not above holding your breath and crossing your fingers through the final spin. You load your laundry bag, actually a pillowcase with dreams, and struggle down the stairs, the fabric threatening to rip, your back threatening to do the same. Each landing that brings a new challenge. A stray skateboard, a mysterious puddle, the neighbor's cat eyeing your socks like prey. By the time you reach the basement or the dank laundry room at the end of the hall, you're already sweating and have mentally drafted at least 2 country songs about your journey. Inside, it's a jungle, a maze of humming machines, detergent spills, lost hope, and a corkboard where someone's posted a flyer for a gently used sofa and a hand-scrawled warning about stealing. The machines themselves are relics, dials stiff from decades of use, coin slots that swallow quarters like slot machines, and doors that only open if you jiggle them just so. You stake your claim on the best one, the one that doesn't shake like it's about to launch into orbit. Unload your bag and hope you remembered the detergent. There's an etiquette to shared laundry spaces, unspoken but strictly enforced. If someone leaves their clothes in a machine longer than 5 minutes, you have the right to move them, gingerly, guiltily, and with the prayer that you're not touching anyone's delicates. You've learned to avert your eyes and focus on your own business, even when you find yourself extracting a stranger's SpongeBob pajamas from the dryer. Nobody wants to be the clothes remover, but everyone ends up with the title sooner or later. You pass the time reading week-old magazines, chatting with other laundry warriors about coupons, landlord drama, and the weather. Sometimes you just zone out, lulled by the rhythmic clunk and whir of machines. You use this time for a rare luxury, thinking your own thoughts. You might even get 5 minutes alone in the hallway, leaning against the cinder block wall, staring at a dusty window, and pretending you're somewhere glamorous, somewhere your clothes wash themselves and socks come in pairs. When the wash is done, you transfer everything to the dryer, assuming there's one free, and it hasn't eaten someone's quarters. The dryer is a gamble. Will it actually dry your clothes, or just make them warm and a little less wet? You shove in your load, plug in the coins, and hope for the best. You've learned to set the heat on medium because hot will shrink everything you own, and air fluff is a myth invented by optimistic appliance engineers. Finally, you drag your clothes back upstairs, arms aching, pillowcase lighter but spirit slightly heavier. The true moment of truth arrives when you sort through the clean laundry, realizing half your socks have disappeared and nothing matches anymore. You consider the possibility that your missing socks are living their best life, somewhere out there in the world, free and unburdened, Folding is the final act of hope. You stack clean shirts, pair up the survivors, and return everything to its proper place. Or just toss it in a basket and call it a day. Laundry, in the end, is about doing what you can with what you have, making peace with imperfection, and finding joy in the smell of cleanish clothes, even if they're a little damp around the edges. You survived another laundry day. Your sock collection may never recover, but you will. As the city lights flicker on, you head out to your second job, maybe cleaning, maybe a diner, maybe something you don't want to talk about. The air is thick with exhaust and expectation. You practice your customer service smile in the reflection of a bus window, hoping no one can see through it. Night shifts in the 1980s are a strange kind of limbo. Most people are home, winding down with sitcom reruns or already dreaming in pastel bedspreads. But for you and 1,000 others, this is when the work really starts. Your uniform might be a faded polo with a questionable logo, a hairnet, or the ever-stylish combination of rubber gloves and sneakers. You check the clock, check your pockets for bus fare, and check your own resolve, praying that both will hold out until morning. The commute itself is an exercise in vigilance. The bus is mostly empty except for a few regulars. A nurse with dark circles for eyes, a man carrying 3 toolboxes, and the old woman who's been knitting the same scarf for as long as you can remember. You stare out the window as the city changes. Shops shutter, streetlights flicker, and neon signs cast a weird glow on faces you'll never really know. At work, time is both a blessing and a curse. It moves differently when most of the world is asleep. Maybe you clean offices, moving silently through rows of empty cubicles and stale coffee cups, erasing the messes of people you'll never meet. Maybe you sling plates at a 24-hour diner, pouring weak coffee for truckers and insomniacs, memorizing their orders and learning which ones tip and which ones tip over. Or maybe your work is more private, a quiet labor behind locked doors, invisible but essential. You develop a kind of rhythm. Clock in, tie your hair back, scrub, serve, stock, smile, repeat. The routine is comforting, in a way. Your hands know what to do, even when your brain wants to drift off. Conversations are short and functional, often held in whispers so as not to disturb the night. Sometimes there's camaraderie among the night crew, a shared joke about the manager, an extra donut from the kitchen, a round of quarters for the vending machine if the boss isn't looking. There are perks to the night shift, if you squint. Less supervision means more freedom, and sometimes the silence feels like a luxury. You can think your own thoughts, plan your grocery list, dream about a future with only one job instead of 2 or 3. You're an expert at managing fatigue, black coffee, candy bars, and the occasional burst of adrenaline when someone forgets to set the alarm and you have to improvise. But the toll is real. By 3 a.m., your body aches in strange places, your eyelids grow heavy, and your mind starts playing tricks on you. Every shadow in the hallway is a dotting says ghost. Every creak a crisis. You check your watch a dozen times, longing for sunrise and the promise of home. Breaks are spent hunched over a formica table, scarfing down a sandwich and catching up on gossip or newsprint crossword puzzles. Sometimes you scribble notes to yourself, reminders, dreams, small promises to do something different someday. When the shift finally ends, the sun is threatening to rise, painting the city in a washed-out orange. You peel off your uniform, count your tips or your hours, and stuff your tired self back onto the bus. The city is just waking up, but you're done for the day, almost. At home, the world is already moving. Kids need breakfast, lunches need packing, and the day ahead feels impossibly long. Working the night shift means living in the cracks between other people's routines. surviving on grit, caffeine, and stubbornness. You rarely get credit for it, and sometimes you forget why you do it yourself. But you show up, night after night, smile in place, heart quietly holding it together, waiting for the world to catch up to the work you've already done. You close your eyes on the ride home, hoping for a little rest before everything starts again. Because in the world of the 1980s, the night shift isn't just a job, it's proof that you can keep going, even in the dark. Sleep comes in fits and starts, chased away by anxiety and caffeine. You make mental lists, groceries, bills, impossible dreams, and watch the shadows creep across your popcorn ceiling. Somewhere, someone is playing a synthesizer too loud. It's a special kind of tired that hits you in the early hours, the one that feels like being underwater but never quite drowning. You lie flat on your back, pillow too lumpy, blanket too hot, sheets twisted up like a failed attempt at modern art. The hum of the fridge is a lullaby with no resolve. Occasionally, you can hear a neighbor's TV murmuring secrets through the wall. You listen for plot twists, then get bored and return to your own. You flip over, rearrange your limbs, and try every position you've ever heard about in magazines. Fetal, starfish, soldier, none of them work. You attempt deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and counting sheep, but the sheep keep demanding better wages and union breaks. You try to imagine what sleep would feel like, but the concept is so abstract, it may as well be quantum physics. Eventually, you give up and reach for the notepad on your nightstand. A battered thing, covered in crossed-out resolutions and shopping lists. You scribble down reminders for tomorrow, pick up milk, call the doctor, do laundry, pay bills, apologize to the neighbor about the incident with the recycling bins. Then you start on your grand plans. Learn French, write a novel, invent a time machine, become rich and mysterious. By morning, all you'll remember is the milk. There's a special brand of insomnia that only strikes when you need sleep the most. On nights before a big day, your brain kicks into high gear, generating anxiety over things that don't even matter. Did you leave the oven on? Did you embarrass yourself in third grade? What if you never sleep again? You lie there, eyes wide, heart pounding, wondering if you could sue your own mind for emotional distress. Somewhere down the hall, the synthesizer player starts up again, weaving in and out of your consciousness. You wish you could ask them for a lullaby, but you suspect you'd get a remix of Axel F instead. You envy people who can just shut off at night, who claim they fall asleep the moment their head hits the pillow. You assume these people are either lying or secretly robots. You try all the old tricks, counting backward from 100, visualizing a calm beach, reciting poetry in your head. Nothing works. You find yourself staring at the ceiling, tracing the bumps and stains like constellations, inventing stories about each one. A galaxy here, a comet there, a mysterious brown nebula from a water leak last winter. The world outside starts to quiet, then slowly wakes up again. Streetlights fade, car engines cough to life, and birds begin their morning announcements. You realize you haven't slept, not really, and the day will be powered by adrenaline, caffeine, and stubbornness. You rise from bed, achy and blurry-eyed, already thinking about when you might try for sleep again. Tonight, tomorrow, someday. Insomnia, in the 1980s or any era, is a private battle, a game of wits between you and your overactive mind. The only prize is surviving another day on little rest, fueled by the hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll win a round tomorrow night. Until then, you pour yourself a cup of coffee and add "get more sleep" to tomorrow's list, right under invent time machine. You tuck your child in with a story about princesses, superheroes, or someone who actually gets 8 hours of sleep. The lullaby is half-hearted, but the love is real. You check the locks, close the curtains, and hope tomorrow brings fewer surprises. Bedtime, in the 1980s, is both a ritual and a negotiation, equal parts magic and exhaustion. The room is a patchwork of hand-me-down sheets, action figures, and a tangle of extension cords running every nightlight you could find at the dollar store. The bed itself might be a sagging twin, a fold-out couch, or just a pile of blankets artfully arranged to look inviting. Your child, teeth brushed, sort of pajamas on, backwards, but who cares, looks up with the wide-eyed optimism of someone who hasn't yet discovered the joy of insomnia. You reach for a book, anything within arm's reach. Maybe it's a battered copy of Goodnight Moon, or maybe it's last week's grocery circular, repurposed into an epic tale of heroism at the cereal aisle. The important thing is the voice. Gentle, even, winding down the tempo with every sentence. Once upon a time you begin, and for a few minutes, reality takes a back seat to dragons, fairies, or a magical family that never fights about rent. Of course, it's not that simple. Kids have questions, always questions. Why can't dogs talk? Why do you have to go to work at night? What happens if the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus run into each other? You do your best, spinning answers from equal parts science, imagination, and exhaustion. You promise there are no monsters, just creaky pipes and neighbors with heavy shoes. You insist that yes, you'll check under the bed, and yes, the nightlight will stay on. You invent rituals, 3 kisses, 2 hugs, a secret handshake, just to keep the fears at bay. As you tuck them in, you're hit by a sudden wave of guilt and tenderness. Did you yell too much today? Did you miss something important? Will they remember the mac and cheese, the scraped knees, or just the way you always sang off-key at bedtime? You smooth the hair from their forehead and make a silent promise. Tomorrow, you'll try even harder. Tomorrow, you'll read 2 stories, maybe 3. Then comes the bargaining. 5 more minutes? They plead, eyes wide, clutching their favorite stuffed animal. You negotiate with the universe. Just 5 quiet minutes. Just a little more patience. Just one night without a midnight fever or a scary dream. You close the door halfway, tiptoeing through a minefield of Lego and squeaky floorboards, praying for a gentle descent into silence. But sleep is never guaranteed. Sometimes, just as you settle in for your own moment of peace, there's a cry from down the hall. Nightmares, spilled water, the sudden need for an urgent discussion about dinosaurs. You stumble back into the room, heart heavy but hands gentle, tucking the blanket in just a little tighter, singing a lullaby you barely remember learning. You remind yourself that these are the moments that matter, even when you feel you're running on fumes and borrowed time. Before you finally collapse into your own bed, you do a last check, window locked, nightlight glowing, your child's breath slow and even. You linger in the doorway, watching the rise and fall of their chest, marveling at how peaceful they look in sleep. For a moment, you allow yourself to believe in the happy ending, the good tomorrow, the magic of a new day, waiting on the other side of dawn. In the end, kids' bedtime is about more than sleep. It's a nightly truce, a small act of hope, and the quietest rebellion against a world that never stops spinning. You whisper goodnight to your child, to the universe, and maybe, if you're lucky, to yourself. It's always just one more time. You promise yourself you'll quit, you'll change, you'll find a way out. But the craving creeps in, slippery and persuasive, whispering that tomorrow is a better day to get clean. The lies you tell yourself are the hardest to hear. Denial isn't just a river in Egypt, it's the soundtrack to your nights and the wallpaper on your walls. In the haze of the 1980s, you become fluent in the language of excuses. I deserve a break. Just this once. I can stop any time I want. Each phrase is another bead on the rosary of self-delusion, prayed over with the sincerity of someone who desperately wants to believe their own words. It's the kind of inner monologue that's both soothing and corrosive, a comfort and a curse. The rituals of addiction are familiar, almost comforting. The search for money, loose change in the couch, forgotten bills at the bottom of a purse. The anxious glance at the clock, the flutter in your chest as you plot how, when, where. You tell yourself you're in control, that you're just taking the edge off, that everyone has their thing. You list the ways you're still doing okay. The rent is sort of paid. Your kid is mostly clean, and you showed up for work, didn't you? Surely that counts for something. But deep down, you know the difference between surviving and spiraling. The craving is always lurking, just beneath the surface. Insistent, seductive, promising a few hours of peace in exchange for another week of regret. It arrives at the worst times, when the house is quiet, when the bills pile up, when you catch your reflection in the bathroom mirror and can't remember the last time you liked what you saw. It's a need that masquerades as relief, that tricks you into trading your tomorrows for a fleeting now. You try bargaining with yourself. Tomorrow I'll quit. Next week, for real. Sometimes you set little traps, throw out the number, flush the stash, promise a friend you're done. But there's always a loophole, always another emergency that justifies a relapse. Maybe it was a hard day. Maybe someone let you down. Maybe the world just feels too sharp, too unforgiving, and you need to round off the edges to get through the night. Denial is a costume you wear for the world and for yourself. You keep up appearances, smiling at the right jokes, nodding at the right stories, hiding the signs as best you can. You become an expert at half-truths. I'm just tired. I'm just stressed. I just need some space. The people who love you try to reach through the fog, but it's easier to push them away than to face the reality reflected in their eyes. And then there's the guilt, settling in when the buzz fades and the excuses run out. You promise your kid you'll do better. You write yourself notes, hang hopeful slogans on the fridge, even talk to the ceiling in the dark, whispering apologies and promises nobody hears. For a moment, you swear you mean it. You want to mean it. The morning comes, and for a few bright hours, you actually believe you've turned a corner. But then the craving comes back, soft as a whisper, and just as persistent. Just one more time, it says, wrapping itself around your resolve like ivy on a crumbling wall. You put off the hard work for another day, clinging to the illusion that quitting will be easier tomorrow. When the bills are paid, when you're less tired, when the world feels kinder. But tomorrow always arrives with the same questions and the same ache. The dance of excuses goes on. A choreography as old as addiction itself. Some nights you win, most nights you lose. But every night, you promise you'll try again. Maybe tomorrow you'll believe your own promises. Maybe tomorrow, the dance will end. But tonight, you just keep moving, caught between hope and habit, denial and the desperate wish for a way out. Everyone has a fantasy, moving to a sunny beach, winning the lottery, or just having a bathroom break without an audience. You stare out the window, watching headlights blur into stars, and let yourself imagine a life where the only thing you're addicted to is sleep. Some nights, the urge to escape is as strong as any craving. You press your forehead to the cool glass, tracing invisible shapes with your finger, and let your mind drift beyond the laundry piles and overdue bills. Maybe, just maybe, there's a better world out there. You picture Florida, because in the 1980s, Florida is the punchline and the dream rolled into one. Endless sun, turquoise waves, neon bikinis, and a guarantee that nobody there remembers your name, your debts, or that time you set the microwave on fire trying to reheat a Pop-Tart. Or maybe you dream even bigger. You're on TV, winning big on The Price is Right, high-fiving Bob Barker in a sweater vest, and spinning the big wheel without a care in the world. You imagine a jackpot landing in your lap, one lucky ticket, a cascade of confetti, a bank account so full you could actually pay the phone bill before the first final notice arrives. The apartment transforms in your mind. Fresh paint, matching furniture, a fridge that hums without complaint. In these dreams, your problems shrink to the size of an expired coupon, but most nights, the dream is smaller and sharper. 5 minutes, just 5 blessed, silent minutes, alone in your own bathroom. No small hands banging at the door, no neighbor's phone ringing through the thin walls, no sudden cry of moom while you're shampooing your hair with dish soap, just you, a lock that works, and maybe a magazine from this decade. It's almost too good to imagine. Of course, escape isn't really about geography or money. It's about the hope of waking up tomorrow with a lighter heart. You imagine what it would feel like to have choices, to say no without consequence, to have time for breakfast, and energy for something more than surviving. In your daydreams, you walk into a store and buy whatever you want. Real coffee, name-brand cereal, lipstick that costs more than $1. You drive a car that starts every time. You live in a place where nobody gossips about your laundry or your kid's latest meltdown. You picture a life with no secrets, no debts, no midnight panic attacks over whether the landlord will raise the rent again. In your imagined escape, the nights are quiet, the bills are paid, and the only addiction you have is to books or naps or watching old movies with someone who laughs at all your jokes. You let yourself believe, if only for a few minutes, that everything could be different, easier, brighter, lighter. Of course, reality always knocks. The window fogs up. The radiator rattles. A siren wails down the street. The fantasy fades as quickly as it arrived, but it leaves a residue of hope, a shimmer at the edge of your tired thoughts. You know, deep down, that there's no magic ticket, no one-way bus to a new life. But that doesn't stop you from wishing, from planning, from promising yourself that you'll get out someday, even if it's only for a weekend at the beach or a quiet hour with nobody needing you for anything. You sigh, close the curtain, and put the dreams away for another night. Tomorrow, you'll get up, make coffee, and do what you always do, survive. But for now, with the world turned, soft and the city lights flickering outside, you let yourself believe that escape is possible, that happiness is just a phone call, a lottery ticket, or a locked bathroom door away. Because if there's one thing even the most exhausted, overburdened mother in the 1980s knows, it's how to keep dreaming, no matter how small, no matter how unlikely, no matter how far away the beach really is. You wonder if your kid will remember the good times, the laughter, the small victories, or if the shadow of addiction will follow them too. You swear you'll do better, try harder, love more fiercely. The cycle bends, but it doesn't always break. There's a peculiar kind of anxiety that keeps you up at night, not just about bills or tomorrow's problems, but about legacy. The 1980s are loud and fast, and full of all the wrong kinds of headlines. Crack is everywhere. On the news, in the neighborhood, sometimes in your own living room. It's a story older than you want to admit. Parents fighting demons, kids absorbing more than anyone realizes. You count the ways your child is different, how you encourage them to dream, to laugh, to believe in things better than what you grew up with. Yet, you catch yourself watching for signs. You wonder if you've passed down more than curly hair or your taste in cartoons. Is there something heavier in their backpack? Is there a sadness in their eyes after a rough week at school? The worry seeps into everything, like cigarette smoke curling into curtains. You look for proof that love can be stronger than genetics, that hope can be taught as much as fear. So you work overtime to be present. You show up at school, plays with a smile so wide it aches. You cheer at soccer games, even if you have no idea what offside means. You memorize their favorite snacks, cartoons, the exact way they like their sandwiches cut. You invent new traditions, a secret handshake, Sunday pancakes, Friday movie night, anything to anchor your child in the memories you want them to keep. But it's not all sitcom montages and lessons wrapped up in half an hour. There are nights when you snap, when the exhaustion and shame spill over and you raise your voice. Maybe you cry in the bathroom, then tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow. Maybe you apologize, stumbling over the words, and your kid forgives you before you finish, because kids are miraculous that way, resilient and forgetful in all the ways you wish you could be. Still, you know the world outside is watching and judging and waiting for you to slip. The concerned neighbors, the teachers with worried eyes, the family members who offer advice wrapped in scorn. You vow to build a wall of protection out of love, grit, and pure stubbornness. You tell your kids stories about your own childhood, the things you wish you'd had, the dreams you never chased. You tell them they can be anything, go anywhere, break the mold. But the truth is, cycles are tricky things. They bend, stretch, wobble under the weight of hope and disappointment. But they don't always snap cleanly. Sometimes you see yourself in your child's anger, in their need to escape, in the way they stare at the TV when the world gets too loud. You worry you're teaching them survival when you want so much more for them than just getting by. You hope the lessons about kindness, honesty, and trying again will stick longer than the scars of all the times you couldn't give enough. The victories are often tiny. A good report card, a spontaneous hug, a night spent laughing instead of arguing. You hold on to these fiercely, building them up like sandbags against the flood of doubt. In quiet moments, you wonder what stories your child will tell someday. Will they remember the late-night dance parties in the kitchen, or the time you fell asleep during story time because you were so tired you couldn't keep your eyes open? Will they know that every single day you tried? The cycle bends. Sometimes it breaks. And sometimes, despite everything, it quietly persists. But you keep going, because that's what parents do. You fight for every inch of daylight. You love as hard as you can, and you trust, however shakily, that your kid will carry the best parts of you forward, leaving the rest behind in the dust of the past. The city quiets down, but your mind doesn't. You sit by the window, smoking a last cigarette, tracing the glow of streetlights. The night stretches on, full of regrets and restless hope. You promise yourself that tomorrow will be different, even if it's only by a little. Night in the 1980s is a paradox. Everything outside grows still, but inside your head, the world spins faster. The traffic thins out. The neighbors' arguments and the shrieks of kids on bikes finally fade. What's left is a hush broken only by the hum of the fridge, the tick of a cheap clock, the far-off siren wailing like a ghost with bad timing. It's supposed to be peaceful, this time when the city sleeps, but you find it's when all the what-ifs come out to play. You try to read, but the words swim in tired eyes. You try TV, but the reruns blur together. A parade of sitcoms, late-night preachers, and exercise infomercials promising a new body by Christmas. You keep the volume low, half hoping not to wake anyone, and half hoping for a distraction from your own restless thoughts. This is the hour for quiet reckoning. You replay conversations in your head, reliving every sharp word, every missed chance, every small kindness you wish had been bigger. Maybe you count the months since you last felt safe, or trace the outline of future plans in the fog on the windowpane. The city outside feels like another planet, so close, yet out of reach, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. You think about the kid asleep in the next room. You wonder if you've done enough, if you'll ever be enough, if there's a way to bend the darkness into something useful. You hope they're dreaming about bright things, roller rinks, summer popsicles, a life without worry. You promise the universe, God, fate, whoever's listening, that you'll try harder, be better, start over as many times as it takes. Some nights you call a friend, someone who gets it. The conversation is a lifeline. Jokes, commiseration, old stories. Maybe a shared silence that says, "You're not alone." Other nights, it's just you and the city's flickering neon, imagining 1,000 other lives happening behind 1,000 other windows. You smoke one more cigarette than you should, tracing each inhale and exhale like a prayer. The habit is part comfort, part rebellion, part way of marking time until the sky lightens and the spell of night finally breaks. You talk to yourself, sometimes out loud, sometimes only in your head, sorting out what went wrong, what might go right, what's still possible even if it's just getting to morning. Hope is stubborn in the dark. It's the small promise you make, not out loud, but somewhere deep and aching. Maybe tomorrow you'll find a job that pays enough, a little more patience, a reason to laugh. Maybe the rent will come through. Maybe the phone won't ring with bad news. Maybe the aches will fade and you'll feel like a person again. Maybe the light will find a way in, even if you have to help it. The hours drag, but eventually, the black sky softens and you spot the first pink hints of dawn. The world hasn't changed, not really, but the act of surviving another night feels like a tiny miracle. You stub out the last cigarette, close the window, and turn out the lights, tired, raw, and hopeful. The kind of hope that's ragged around the edges but still refuses to die. You tell yourself one last time, tomorrow, you'll try again. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. It always starts with a knock you weren't expecting. Suddenly your aunt, cousin, or mother-in-law is on the couch, nursing a Diet Coke and judging your dust bunnies. They ask how you're doing, but what they really want is ammunition for Thanksgiving. You smile through gritted teeth, pretending the place smells like fresh cookies and not burnt Pop-Tarts and stress. In the world of the 1980s, you never know when a family member is going to materialize at your door, usually armed with a plastic bag from the drugstore and a look that says, "I'm here to help and to judge." You wipe your hands on your jeans and clear a space on the couch, moving aside laundry, toy cars, and yesterday's mail. Your mother-in-law settles in with her favorite soda and immediately begins a slow scan of the room, clocking every out-of-place shoe, every sticky surface, every sign of chaos she can file away for later use. "Looks like you've been busy," she says, which is code for, "Why does your living room look like a tornado hit it?" You nod, offer coffee you can barely spare, and brace for the interrogation to begin. The questions are always the same, delivered with a syrupy smile. "How's work? How's the little one doing in school? You know, I heard about a lady from my church whose daughter finally got her act together. Maybe you should talk to her." Relatives are experts in the subtle art of the drive-by critique. They notice everything. How you haven't dusted the baseboards, how your kids' socks don't match, how there's a stack of overdue bills on the side table. They offer helpful suggestions. "Have you tried putting vinegar in your wash? I read an article about routines, dear. Maybe you could get everyone up at the same time every day." You bite your tongue and thank them, wondering if anyone has ever actually improved their life based on unsolicited laundry advice. They're generous, in their own way. Sometimes they bring gifts, leftovers wrapped in foil, hand-me-down clothes for the kid, a magazine with recipes you'll never try. Other times, it's less tangible. A sigh, A pointed look at the pile of dishes in the sink. A comment about how they managed 3 kids without all this modern help. You smile, count to 10, and dream about the day you'll be the relative who shows up just to sit quietly and drink coffee. But it's not all bad. Sometimes, between the pointed questions and passive-aggressive compliments, you catch a glimpse of real concern. Maybe it's the way your aunt brings up your favorite childhood snack, or how your cousin asks if you need a ride somewhere. No questions asked. The family brand of love is messy, tangled up in expectation and history, but sometimes it's the only safety net you've got. You know that if you ever really needed them, they'd show up with casseroles and a willingness to babysit, even if they'd also reorganize your kitchen for your own good. Still, every visit is a performance. You scrub, tidy, and prepare your answers like a contestant on a game show, hoping to win the grand prize of least likely to be talked about at Christmas. After the relatives leave, you collapse on the couch, equal parts exhausted and relieved. You replay every conversation, analyzing the tone of every just a suggestion, and wondering what family legend you've unwittingly created this time. You light a scented candle to chase away the smell of old grievances and Pop-Tarts, pour yourself the last of the coffee, and swear you'll be more prepared next time. You won't be, of course, but the promise is as much a tradition as the visits themselves. Because in the world of surprise relatives and unsolicited advice, survival means perfecting the art of smiling through the shade and loving them anyway. Because family is family, even when it shows up unannounced. On Tuesday nights, you drag yourself to the local community center, where the lights flicker and the coffee tastes like cardboard. You sit in a circle of strangers and pretend you aren't embarrassed. There's laughter, tears, and more than one story about hiding from bill collectors in the bathtub. The donut is stale, but at least the understanding is fresh. The community center is nothing glamorous. A converted classroom with cinder block walls, folding tables, and a clock that seems to run on its own sense of irony. The fluorescent lights buzz like a mosquito in your ear. There's always a stack of folding chairs in the corner, each one promising at least one sore spot by the end of the hour. The table near the back is set with styrofoam cups, questionable decaf, and a box of day-old donuts whose flavor could best be described as memory of glaze. You grab a seat, never in the middle, but not quite hiding at the back. The group is a ragtag assortment. Moms, grandmas, guys who look like they haven't slept in days, a teenager with headphones, and a social worker who tries to keep things moving but never pushes too hard. The group leader starts with a welcome and a reminder. No judgment, no advice unless it's asked for. And everything here stays here. You nod, still clutching your cup like it's a lifeline. Introductions go around. Everyone shares a little or a lot. Depending on the night, there's always someone new, shifting nervously, and someone who's been coming so long their stories are part of the furniture. You take a turn, speaking quietly at first, half hoping no one hears you, and half desperate to be heard. I had a rough week, you say, or I'm just tired, which is the code for I don't know how much longer I can do this. Stories tumble out, some with shaky laughter, some with tears that sneak up mid-sentence. There are confessions about lost jobs, screaming matches, relapses, victories so small they wouldn't make sense outside this circle. I paid my phone bill on time. I told my sister the truth. I let myself cry. The room hums with empathy, a patchwork quilt of shared struggle, stitched together by nods, sighs, and awkward jokes. The beauty of the support group is its absolute lack of surprise. You can admit to anything here. Eating peanut butter from the jar for dinner, hiding bills in the freezer, calling your ex when you know you shouldn't, yelling at your kid and then apologizing with ice cream. There's comfort in the knowledge that nobody will flinch, or try to fix you. You're not a project. You're just a person, in good company, fighting the same battles as everyone else. Every week, you learn a new survival tip. Turn off the ringer during dinner. Start the morning with music, not the news. Hide your good socks from the drier gremlins. Sometimes, someone reads a poem or brings a battered self-help book to share. The leader might remind everyone to take it one day at a time, a phrase that's so worn in you could use it as a pillow. Eventually, someone cracks a joke about the coffee, the donuts, the weather, or the fact that everyone here could probably run for mayor of Rock Bottom and win by a landslide. You all laugh, the sound cutting through the anxiety and leaving something softer behind. At the end of the meeting, there's a reluctant shuffle as everyone puts away their folding chairs, empties their cups, and promises to see you next week. You pocket a donut for the walk home. Stale, yes, but somehow better for being shared. You feel lighter, if only by a few ounces of worry, walking back through the quiet, flickering lit streets. You remember that you're not alone. The group might not solve your problems, but it holds them for a while, giving you just enough strength to face another week. And sometimes, that's all you need. And so, here we are, at the end of another absurd and brutally honest day in the life of a crack-addicted mother in the 1980s. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've survived a gauntlet of burned coffee, bad sitcoms, judgmental neighbors, overdue bills, sugar highs, and the kind of exhaustion that seeps right down to your bones. You've juggled social workers and supermarket clerks, police visits and PTA meetings, all with a sense of humor that deserves its own trophy, or at least a nap. There's a kind of wild resilience in living like this, an everyday heroism nobody gives medals for. The moms who pulled themselves out of bed, pieced together mac and cheese, and found ways to keep the lights on, sometimes literally, sometimes just with hope. They were survivors, hustlers, comedians, magicians, and, yes, sometimes casualties of a system that stacked the deck against them from the start. Tonight, as you tuck yourself into a clean bed, maybe for the first time in a while, pause for a second and remember how far the world has come. Running water, safe neighborhoods, therapy that doesn't involve talk shows and denial. These things are worth a quiet thank you, because, for all its chaos and struggle, history proves that people are stubborn, scrappy, and far more hilarious than we give them credit for. So let the struggles of the past remind you that modern life, for all its annoyances and 2 a.m. worries, is a minor miracle of comfort and possibility. If you're listening to this with a roof over your head and a fridge with more than a jar of pickles, count yourself lucky. And now, drift off gently, leaving behind the neon-lit, chaos-soaked streets of the 1980s. Because if there's one thing that history teaches us, it's that you, yes, you are tougher, funnier, and more resilient than you think. Sleep well, and may your dreams be free of grocery lists, overdue rent, and suspiciously sticky carpets. Good night.